Today, we are doing a new bike build. I'm down at GritShift in Florida, and behind me, I have a bike that you might recognize if you're a regular follower of this channel. This bike started out as the ultimate SurRon XX Build, and it's seen quite a few variations since that first build. But today, it's about to receive its biggest overhaul yet. We're about to tear this bike down and give it a whole new look. First, we're replacing the stock motor with a KO RS motor, which is going to be paired with a KO Pro Series controller. We added the illustrious EXT Arma shock and a Warp 9 linkage. We're running a Warp 9 54 tooth sprocket, GritShift axle blocks, and a Warp 9 riser bar. For better stopping power, we're running the Hayes Dominion A4 brakes. And to power the bike, Shy Battery built us a custom Gen 2 72 volt 38 amp hour battery. These custom bike builds always throw curveballs at us. We've got the Form Foundry kit. We knew this was going to be an issue, so Shy Battery was awesome and made us a custom battery for this build. This is a 72 volt 38 amp hour battery from Shy. What they did was they made this a capless version, so it's going to be lower profile, it's not going to have a display, and that will make the battery a little bit shorter so that it would work in this bike. The only problem is we're still running into some fitment issues. It's a little too tall in the rear right here, and it's just not going to fit. We're running into some issues with the charge port as well, hitting the top of the Form Foundry kit. So a little bit tighter than we thought. Unfortunately, that battery is just not going to work. So we're going to go back to the drawing board on that and see if we can come up with a solution. Moving down, we've got the EXT shock on here, which is fitting great. And we wanted to swap out a Warp 9 triangle, so we're going to wait on that. And also the Warp 9 linkage that we have is a 1.5 inch riser linkage. So we want that to be the 0.75. To maintain a little bit lower ride height in the rear. So we're gonna wait on that. Lastly, we are still running the post mount stem, and we were able to put some Warp 9 bars on it for the time being, but what we wanted to run is this new GritShift heavy hitter bar mount. And so this is direct mount to your fork, but you can run moto bars, and that's exactly what we plan to do. So that's just the way things go sometimes. We've got some projects left to finish on this bike. Fork, battery, rear triangle, rear linkage, and bar mounts and bars. And then once all those are complete, we should have this bike ready to go. In the meantime, we're gonna figure out some solutions so that we can get out and actually test this thing in the next couple days. Our solution was to make a very long trip to go get my EBMX 72 volt 42 amp hour battery from the Beast build, which it turns out is also a very tight fit in the Form Foundry kit. Well, that thing's never coming out. Yeah. In the process, we tore the EBMX stickers up pretty bad, so we ended up just pulling those stickers off the battery. Next, we trim every little bit of material that we could off of the battery lid. We pulled all of the foam material off the lid and trimmed some more. We eventually got the lid to close, but you can see here there's still a bit of a gap that we're going to have to live with. Maybe an afternoon with a heat gun is in our future to help shape this lid a little bit more. But with the battery in the bike, it was now time to go test the KO tune that Josh from GritShift had set up for us. Tell me what we got going on right now, Josh. We're all set up.
All set up with a 72 volt battery. I have just a baseline tune in it right now. We haven't even test ridden it with this tune. I literally just messed with a bunch of the sliders in the KO app, and we're gonna see how it is now.
All right, so you're saying 9 to 10 kilowatts
on
eco mode.
Yeah.
And then
so eco mode, I usually set it up like that way when I'm in trails and stuff like that, I have something a little bit more tame. And then sport mode is like MX track or like really like sugar sand, like chrome riding or something like that, where you need the extra power.
Right.
So go feel it out, and then when you get back we could adjust some stuff and make it more to your liking.
And sport's like 19 kilowatts.
Sport's 19, yeah.
Sick. Damn. That is quite fast just in eco mode. All right, let's click it up to sport and see. Man, that is crazy fast. Wow, dude.
How was it?
It is ripping in sport mode. That's crazy fast. We'll do some additional content about the setup procedure and tuning for this KO kit, but basically Josh and I tested a bunch of different settings out here on the street. I ultimately stuck with Josh's original tune with a couple of tweaks to the throttle. In terms of power, one thing I'm going to reference later in this series is this bike right here, so I want to give you some context here. This is Josh's super light SurRon build with the KO Nano.
This, no EP, sport switch, none of that. It's same power all time. It's live, so go for it, have fun.
What should I expect here?
It's a Nano controller maxed out, basically.
Okay.
With a 72 volt battery, and the bike's as light as it can be without compromising, you know, too much.
Cool, man. Try this thing out. I just feel right at home in the 1821. That is awesome. Dude, that's perfect.
It's perfect.
It's perfect, really.
Great.
I think it feels awesome, man. Yeah, it feels really good. Now, I'm showing you some beauty shots here, but this build is not over. I just wanted to test these power settings in the dirt, so we hit Croom to go run it in some sand and single track. All right. This tune is amazing. This bike is so fast. Woo! Man. This bike is so powerful. This tune feels really good. It also feels really fast. And this shock feels so good that it's making my fork not feel good. Because that happens. It feels a little out of balance. So I'm gonna take a little low speed compression out of the fork. All right, so the two things I'm noticing, obviously the power is incredible on this bike. It just feels so strong. So yeah, power feels incredible on this thing. There's absolutely no denying that. The other thing that I'm really noticing too is this EXT shock is so good. And it's almost so good that it's too good for the fork that I've got on here. What I mean by that is the bike feels a little out of balance now, because now I know how good it could feel, and that's what I'm feeling in the back, but the front isn't really matched, so now we got some work to do in the front to match this shock. But right out of the box, this rear shock feels so plush. And I've ridden the EXT before, But you're always on other people's bikes and it's not really set up for you, getting used to everybody's settings, and so I find that kind of hard to get a gauge on a part when I do that. I like to try it on my own bikes. And man, now that this is on a bike that I'm super familiar with, yeah, it feels so good. The other thing I'm realizing too is, like, I knew this about myself, but I gotta try all this stuff, is the 1916. It's fun how nimble it is. If I was doing dirt jumps or something like that, then yeah, I think the 1916 is great, but I just don't like how a 19 corners. I think it's just something that's personal preference, but pretty sensitive with the front ends on my bikes, and I just like the way a 21 feels up front. One other thing, I'm just gonna change these brake levers a little bit. The nice thing is you can adjust this dial and it brings the levers in or out. So I'm bringing these in just a little bit. Feels good. So yeah, Dominion brakes. These are really good. I've ridden these before on the Drill 1, and honestly other mountain bikes I've ridden have had these. But yeah, these feel awesome. Back to the power. I know a lot of you guys are running KO stuff, and it's another thing I've ridden in the past, but my God, does this thing have power. I can usually hold bikes wide open in this stuff, but I can't with this tune. It's so much power. It's putting out 19 kilowatts, and that's pretty insane on this little bike. All right, guys. Wow, this bike is a whole different animal now for sure. This tune on this bike feels really good. I almost need to figure out a better eco setting on it because for what I was just riding there is honestly too powerful. I think it'd be perfect for a motocross track. You'd have plenty of power, but when I was at like half to 3/4 throttles going as fast as I want to be going, I'd hit some of those whoops and still have a ton of power left. And so that's a great thing. It's always better to detune than it is to not have enough. So this bike has plenty to work with now. The other thing that I'm so impressed by is this EXT shock on the rear. This thing is like butter, and it honestly makes my fork feel not very good anymore. So now I need to figure out some suspension up front that's going to complement that rear EXT shock. Otherwise, I think I might go back to an 1821. It really depends on the terrain. Like if I'm riding dirt jumps or something like that, or really flowy stuff that has a lot of traction, I like the 1916, but I just personally like the 2118 much more. And so now with all of this power, I think I'm going to switch it to a 2118.
This bike is not even half of the way done yet, so there's a bunch more to show you, and we'll finish that up in the next video. But I want to give a big thank you to GritShift. I've got a much better understanding of the KO tuning, and it's super impressive. Also, a big thanks to EXT, Warp 9, and Shy for making this first part happen. Stay tuned for the next video, and in the meantime, if you want any of these parts, you can check the links in the description. Thanks as always for watching, and see you in the next video.